One specifically thing she said that was going to really impact white people. Jack up the fucking debt, print money to provide housing, and everyone pays 30% for housing.
Joe Rogan has sharply criticized Mamdani and city official C. Weaver over their housing agenda. The comedian, sports commentator, and podcast host argues that Mamdani's push to subsidize housing in New York is completely detached from reality today. Here we unpack Rogan's exact remarks and the ripple effects they could realistically have on Mamdani's political future ahead. As always, smash the subscribe button and let's jump right in.
Well, she wants to, kill real estate value. That's her idea. Like, she wants to literally to make housing more affordable. She wants to kill real estate value.
It's an inelastic good. You can't.
Well, it's moronic thinking.
Oh, this woman.
Listen to this lady. Listen to this.
And she has like $1 million house?
Her mom does.
Oh.
Well, of course.
Which the housing is owned by a collective and people are paying 30% of their income in order to live in their housing. If your income is zero, you pay zero. If your income is $500,000 a year, you're paying 30% of that. And the government is providing the government is the sort of owner, or not even the owner. The government doesn't have to be the owner, but the government is what's making sure all of that sort of works in cash flows.
The debt to GDP ratio right now is the highest since World War II. So how can the federal government...
So, that was C. Weaver in an interview, laying out how she plans to tackle the housing crisis in New York. Now listen to the sharp, probing questions she'll be asked by a direct and level-headed host ahead.
Government also afford to start subsidizing rental housing costs.
The federal government prints money. The federal government can provide money for us.
So by printing money.
Sure.
That's her idea. Print money. Federal government print money to provide housing. Jack up.
So you can see why critics argue these ideas are out of touch with economic reality. It's not possible to print more money to solve the housing problem without triggering serious economic backlash. This is Economics 101. The more money a government prints and floods into the system, the less valuable that money becomes. Inflation rises. Purchasing power drops, and suddenly the very people these policies claim to help are worse off than before. Rents go up, construction costs soar, and wages never quite catch up. Weaver's idea is essentially for the government to print more money to service its debt now, with the vague promise that housing will somehow sort itself out later. But that later never comes. Instead, taxpayers inherit higher prices, deeper deficits, and a bloated system that keeps demanding more cash to sustain itself. It follows a familiar pattern. Ignore basic economic constraints, increase spending, then react when the consequences emerge. At some point, ideology can shift from being well-intentioned to producing unintended consequences.
Print money to provide housing, and everyone pays 30% for housing.
First of all, why are you talking to me in a hoodie? What mental illness is that? Like, how dare you? First of all, you look like powder. You look like, first of all, get a blowout, throw some mascara. Like, are we professionals anymore? You're in a Costco hoodie and a t-shirt. Like, what are we doing?
Well, you've seen they've confronted her about these ideas.
Okay, so for context, this is an older clip of C. Weaver from before she was appointed by Mamdani. She's in a hoodie because it was a casual podcast interview, not some staged press event. So none of that adds to or subtracts from the substance of what she's saying. What does matter is the idea she floats next. According to Weaver, people with no income wouldn't pay for housing at all, while those earning around $500,000 would be capped at paying just 30%. On paper, it sounds compassionate. In practice, it appears disconnected from how housing markets typically function. High earners would have zero incentive to stay in the system. Developers wouldn't build under capped returns, and the tax burden would spiral out of control. You end up punishing productivity, shrinking supply, and expecting a small group of earners to bankroll everyone else indefinitely. That's not a sustainable housing solution. It struggles once real-world incentives are applied.
Own it.
Her training was UCB. Like, she's just improvising an idea. No, the government does that. She's not even making eye contact. Like, damn.
Well, a lot of these wokies, they come from rich families. They feel bad about being privileged.
Yeah.
And one specifically thing she said that was going to really impact white people.
What is fascinating about that is that because I think she believes she's coming from the moral high ground, I think this is what's really sort of... It is someone who I feel like is similar to you, and then I'm like, I was as liberal. I had blue hair, you guys. Like
I remember when you had blue hair.
I rescue pit bulls. Like it doesn't get any more liberal than me. Like it doesn't get any more. But the whole idea.
It's notable how C. Weaver struggled to clearly defend these ideas when she was pressed on them. And this is where Rogan's point really lands. It comes across as an attempt to address complex social issues through broad, emotionally driven policy proposals. The impulse itself may be sincere, even well-meaning. Good intentions don't make bad ideas workable. Emotional responses don't substitute for economic reality. When policy is driven by guilt instead of logic, the outcome is almost always the same. More distortion, more inefficiency, and more harm to the very people these policies claim to protect. Weaver's proposals lean heavily into moral messaging. They overlook incentives, supply constraints, and basic market dynamics. Feeling bad about inequality doesn't magically fix it. In fact, policies built on emotion rather than structure tend to make housing scarcer, more expensive, and more politicized. Compassion without practical execution can become a serious policy liability.
Liberal is like, you had me at, we're not racist. Everyone's equal.
Right.
But, diversity. But then it turns into diversity.
Communism.
Diversity, but not diversity of thought.
Right.
Right. The hypocrisy of it and I think that as comics, we're people who, I may not be an expert in politics, but I'm an expert on hypocrisy. When you grow up around alcoholics who say, I love you, and then their behavior's incongruous, you look for patterns of hypocrisy. That's just what we're wired to do. So it just started to just be like, hold on, we don't believe in gender, but we need a female president. You're like, huh? And then it's like, my body, my choice. Unless it's a baby that needs a vaccine for hepatitis.
Whitney Cummings absolutely nailed it in that moment. She points out the hypocrisy in C. Weaver pushing solutions she likely knows won't work. Not because they're practical, but because they satisfy a deep emotional need to feel like a solution provider. It's performative problem solving, more about signaling virtue than delivering results. And this mindset doesn't exist in a vacuum. It traces back to Mamdani himself, who has previously supported highly idealistic policy proposals. Free grocery stores, free buses, free everything, except of course the explanation for who pays and how it's sustained. These ideas sound generous on a podcast or campaign trail, but they collapse under basic scrutiny. Nothing is truly free. The cost just gets shifted, hidden, or delayed until it explodes elsewhere in the system. What starts as empathy quickly turns into fantasy economics. And when fantasy replaces reality in policy making, cities don't necessarily become more affordable and often require continued government intervention to address unintended outcomes.
I mean, I read these 74% are for democratic socialism. Only 16% favor capitalism. Is this going to be a country that I don't recognize in 5 to 10 years if we don't have these two pillars? If we don't, where are the Democrats going with this? If Mamdani is the face of the Democrats on the East Coast and Katie Porter is the face on the West Coast, I don't know if that's great politically for that party.
All right. So first, Bill, I'm trying to give you some credit here. Republicans do not dislike freedom. It's Republicans that are secure.
Bill Maher warned New Yorkers about Mamdani long before he was ever elected into office. Back then, his concerns were brushed off as exaggeration or partisan noise. Now, Maher isn't just repeating the warning, he's escalating it. He's telling Democrats flat out that if they continue to elevate Mamdani and make him the public face of the party heading into the 2028 elections, they're courting disaster. According to Maher, this isn't about personality or tone, it's about ideology. Policies that sound radical, unserious, or detached from everyday reality don't just alienate conservatives, they scare off moderates, independents, and working class voters who decide elections. Maher's message is blunt. Voters aren't asking for experiments or ideological purity tests. They want competence, stability, and results. Democrats ignore that warning and double down anyway. Maher believes they should brace themselves for one of the most lopsided and humiliating electoral defeats in modern political history.
New York is New York. It's definitely it's the media capital, the financial capital. It is a bellwether like no other city is in this country. So don't tell me that who the mayor of New York is doesn't matter.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Do you think, let's say, on the seize the means of production, do you think the mayor, that one person, if he is a democratic socialist, do you think that he would have the power and influence to be able to usher in socialism?
He definitely has the power and influence to elect J.D. Vance or whoever is the Republican candidate next time. It is a walking commercial for the Republican Party.
Maher's point is why Mamdani presents a significant political risk for Democrats. He has the charisma, confidence, and the surface-level likability to carry the party's banner into the 2028 presidential race. And Maher has seen this movie before. He sounded the alarm years ago with Kamala Harris, warning that style without substance and ideology without realism would backfire. Now he's issuing the same warning about Mamdani, only louder. Problem isn't charm, it's policy. Mamdani's ideas flirt openly with socialism, and history has been brutally consistent on this point. Historical examples suggest that socialist systems have struggled to deliver the outcomes they promise, even when rebranded. It promises fairness, but delivers scarcity. It claims to empower the masses, but ends up enriching a small ruling class, while everyone else pays the price through higher costs, fewer opportunities, and reduced freedom. Voters may tolerate rhetoric for a while, but reality always catches up.
You have the guy running in New York, Mamdani, right? Okay, who's like a straight up communist. I mean, he is. He talks about, the things that communists say. I mean, he wants free grocery stores, free buses.
I want him to win.
You want him to win?
Yeah. I think every 20 years or so.
Wait.
We need every 20 years or so, we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crank it up again. Socialist slogan used to be, workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The new socialist slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess.
This moment highlights a striking contradiction. Socialists used to project absolute confidence in their ideology, right up until that very ideology started betraying them in real time. Now the pitch has shifted. Suddenly it's, trust us next time, we won't mess it up. But history tells a different story, and it's not exactly subtle. We've already seen this experiment run again and again, with the same grim results. The USSR promised equality and delivered collapse. North Korea promised collective prosperity and produced one of the most impoverished, repressed societies on Earth. Venezuela was once one of the richest countries in Latin America, only to be hollowed out by socialist policies that destroyed productivity and concentrated power at the top. Every time, the rhetoric is hopeful, moral, and grand. Every time, the outcome is scarcity, corruption, and suffering. So when modern socialists ask for another chance, they're not asking for patience. They're asking voters to ignore decades of evidence and gamble everything on a failed idea wearing a new slogan.
The slogan is, trust us, this time it won't be a mess. So, when the post-war Labour government in Britain was about to get started, one of their leading lights was a socialist named Nurian Bevan. He said, what could go wrong? He said, we have a nation bedded on coal, surrounded by fish. It would take an organizational genius to have a shortage of either. In 3 years, they had a shortage of both. That's socialism.
When you step back and look at the full picture, the pattern is impossible to ignore. These ideas sound compassionate, moral, and forward-thinking on podcasts and campaign stages, but they consistently collapse when exposed to economic reality. Good intentions are treated as a substitute for competence. Emotion replaces structure, and ideology overrides evidence. Maher, Rogan, and even comedians like Whitney Cummings aren't attacking empathy. They're warning against fantasy policymaking. Housing can't be fixed by printing money, capping prices, or punishing productivity without consequences. Socialism keeps promising fairness, yet repeatedly delivers scarcity, inflation, and power concentrated in the hands of a few elites. History has already run this experiment, and the results are painfully consistent. What's alarming isn't just the ideas themselves, but how confidently they're recycled despite overwhelming evidence of failure. Voters eventually wake up when prices rise, services decline, and accountability disappears. At that point, rhetoric no longer matters. Reality always wins, and when it does, it's never the ideologues who pay the price first, it's everyone else.